White women,
white women,
would you be mine, my darling dear? All right, very good. What's up? It's the Hard Deconstruction. You can find us at HorrorDeconstruction.tumblr.com, YouTube.com/HorrorDeconstruction, as well as Facebook.com/TheHorrorDeconstruction with Comp, and
Striped Socks Jimmy,
as well as
Thea
from HorrorHarbor.tumblr.com. And today's film is
Get Out. Get Out.
a young
2017.
A young African
You guys
American.
get the reference?
Oh,
I'm referencing Nightcrawler from X-Men.
Oh, I thought you were referencing the Amityville Horror. A young African American man visits his Caucasian girlfriend's mysterious family estate. Very good. Directed by Jordan Peele.
Mysteriously family.
Written by Jordan Peele, starring Daniel Kaluuya. Not only is a good actor, he's a fantastic coffee tasting drink. Get it?
Yeah.
Allison Williams, Bradley
All
Whitford,
right.
and a bunch of other people like Catherine Keener and Marcus Henderson, Betty Gabriel. Very good. So, why did I pick this film, Danny?
You're a racist.
That's right. So this is going to be a very special episode where we talk about race.
We already know what your opinion is.
We're going to talk about race in America, something that's very important to Thea because she's not from America. So Get Out.
Right.
Yeah.
Thea, can you give us a gist of what this film is about?
So the gist is that, well, it starts
Specify
out
the
with...
word gist. Sorry, go on.
A gist is, we start out with a gentleman walking down the street. He's a black guy in like a white, affluent neighborhood.
That language is problematic, but continue.
Well, fuck you. And he's visibly like uncomfortable. He gets off the phone, and there's a car that starts to stalk him. And at first, he's not totally sure if it's actually stalking him or just being weird. And then a guy gets out of the car and beats him and throws him in the trunk.
You know what I'll say about that?
Talk about microaggressions.
I'll say about that.
Yeah.
The beginning of this film.
I didn't make the connection that was the guy. That was
Me neither. Yeah.
Yes,
I didn't
right.
think so because of the facial hair. Same thing with the second guy.
There's a lot of nice little through lines and details like
Yeah,
that.
I gotta watch it again.
So this is a film that obviously there was a lot of buzz for this film, a lot of hype for this film, and deservedly so. I didn't know anything about it ahead of time, other than it was going to be a black guy in peril by all these white people. I was like, okay, because everywhere I read, oh, it's good, it's really good, and like as a jaded horror fan, I'm sure you too.
Yeah, I know.
No, you're
I
like,
assumed it was gonna be mainstream crap.
You hear
you
hear it's good about a lot of movies that aren't.
because then
like The Grudge.
and then you hear it from people that aren't like people that that are like horror fans. You hear them from like regular people. They're like, oh, I saw this great horror movie. Then you go, yeah, sure. You do that shit, and literally like that. You do that with the one eye closed.
I bet you did.
You do that like when your one eye is closed and your shoulder is up. You're like, yeah, sure.
Sure.
But
Tell me more.
it literally like was worth it. I went to the theater to go watch this. Like actually went to a theater to watch this. I don't pirate
I did
it.
too.
And I was at the.
I'm jealous.
I was at the at the
It was a
stand.
good theater experience.
Mine too. I go to the AMC's, the one that have the seats where you can kind of like press buttons and you lean back in it. So it's very nice. So go to the good AMC's. Don't go to
Fancy.
the one where Danny and
Only
I
cost
went.
You go to those
$15
bullshit
or something per
AMCs.
ticket.
No. Danny and I went to go see the Neon
Horrible
Demon,
movie.
and there was no electronic seats, and Danny had to pay $15 or something like that. It was
No,
horrible.
it was $15 and then like $8 for like popcorn or something.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, with this film, I remember I went right up to the ticket seller, and I was like, oh man, what should I watch, Logan or Get Out? And she was like, go watch Get Out. So, I mean, she gave me the right choice.
lady.
So this film,
Although I heard Logan's good too, but
it was good. It was actually pretty good.
Still.
But this film was actually something that I was like, I was surprised at how well done it was and how tight of a film it was. Like the last film that I saw that was pretty tight. Was The Fly by Cronenberg, and I'm not putting it on that level of that type of film, but it was a film that kind of crossed the T's and dotted the I's, where everything sort of came into its logical conclusions.
yeah, it pays
And-
attention to detail very well, and
Right.
you can tell read about this after, but he spent a lot of time writing and rewriting that script, and he did it over years.
Especially
so when he finally got to make it, you can tell.
Especially on second viewings, which stuff that I missed the first time I was, especially like the first guy that gets kidnapped in the beginning. Obviously, he's there in the second part. I was like, why?
He's the guy that's wearing the hat. And with the 40-year-older woman.
And I didn't get the part. I was like, why wasn't he dating the daughter? And then they bring it up later that the brother has a different method of taking the guys in, that kind of thing.
Right.
So, but it certainly is a really good film, and it's certainly worth the hype of watching this film. Because when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, it's just gonna be a race horror film. And funny enough, this and
which also hasn't really been done that much.
Yeah, I think what happens
what
is
other movie does this the same way, right?
I got to think
horror,
I got to think a lot of because I think white directors are sort of afraid of that. They're not afraid of anything else like changing races and stuff like that, but like directly dealing with race, unless it's like a slavery film, they're sort of like afraid of doing it, unless it might look like it's catering to people.
He said he was inspired by Night of the Living Dead, which he thinks was the only other like genre like horror movie that he thought sort of dealt with it.
Yeah, I think yes. Yeah, because in Night of the Living Dead, the original film, obviously they had they had a black hero, and then he ended up getting killed anyway at the end, which they sort of fucked up in the remake. I remember they just sort of made him a zombie at the end, so maybe they didn't want to offend people anymore with that. Did you see the remake, Thea, for Night of the Living Dead?
I don't think I didn't see the remake.
You never saw the Tony Todd one?
No.
Yeah, Tony Todd is great in it, but it's
a good movie.
I like him. I like that it's Tom Savini too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm actually more familiar with the 1990 one or whenever it was made than the original, but I've seen both.
Because Danny's a Philistine. But I think when you first heard about Get Out, what did you think about it, Thea? Like before you even saw it, like when you heard the initial buzz for it, what were your thoughts initially on it?
Well, when I heard the buzz for it, I immediately recognized the name Jordan Peele because it's Key and Peele. And I thought, oh, I didn't know he wrote horror movies, and it was also his first time directing. So first time writing and directing a horror movie, I was like a little skeptical.
Right.
But you can tell he's a fan of the genre.
Obviously, and now he's got a new Netflix deal, right? I think, where it's like
is it gonna be horror?
Genre.
Yeah, it's another thing that deals with like Lovecraftian things, but also in like racism. So that's the only kind of thing that
actually kind of perfect.
Yeah, because Lovecraft was like a
Lovecraft universe is like.
Lovecraft was also a racist too, so
that too, which is actually kind of a nice point.
Rolling in his grave.
That's the only thing where I'm worried about with Jordan Peele. Like, I hope not everything is about race with his films, because I want to see him kind of grow as a director. But I'm in for a Lovecraft.
I don't care as long as he keeps making quality films.
I'm in for a Lovecraft and racism sort of film, because you don't see that sort of mashup of material, even though it was clearly blatant in Lovecraft's own books, where he's kind of judging all types of races that weren't white in those books. Sign of the times, I guess. But what's also funny in the opening of this is that I liked that, for some reason, it reminded me of what was that film, Tales from the Hood. I don't know if you guys have seen that film.
Oh, it's been years.
A long time ago.
Tales from the Hood also had that sort of mysterious violin stuff that happens in it. I don't know if it was a violin or a cello. You know how the violin at the beginning of this film, the opening credits, when he's like, the guy gets taken into the car and you hear violin stuff, or no? But like it's for some reason it works when it's in black film. It doesn't. I don't hear violin in any horror film besides like black horror films, and I just needlessly needed to point that out. Anyway, so with this film, the funny thing is, like, when you initially hear about this, you're thinking, oh, it's sort of a Stepford Wives horror film where the white racists take over black people. Which he
was also influenced by.
Yeah. And
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, obviously.
The ironic thing is, I think it's a different racism than, Nazis or any of those sort of white supremacist people. It's more of like this liberal sort of ignorant racism.
Which is even worse.
Actually.
Maybe not.
It's probably equal.
It's worse in the sense because it's like if you can't see the enemy, like it's better to see your enemy than
Yeah.
to be like friends with your enemy. You know what I'm
Be
saying?
like
So Danny
confused by
says
them.
liberal racism is worse than blowing up churches with children.
It's
And
worse,
okay,
it's
excuse
worse
me.
in the sense that you can't identify it.
Right, that's true.
Like actual racism, like obviously a lynch mob is worse than like Hillary Clinton or something. But like if you have a person who's racist but they're pretending like they're your friend,
That's
Right.
true.
that's bad.
It's,
Well,
because
they-
it's like racists who don't think they're racist. So
Yeah.
and like vehemently would deny it, basically.
but they are. But they
Or
are
just sort of
racist.
acknowledge it. Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
obviously,
they think that because they're not like drawing a swastika on someone's forehead that they're not racist or something.
Right. Yeah.
and the thing
many
And
is,
it's like
Degrees.
there's different degrees. Yeah.
the three of us are talking about this coming from different backgrounds. What?
I was wondering how you're gonna segue.
No. I'm just saying that we're not.
Alex is a KKK member.
No, I'm not.
I'm a neo-Nazi.
What's Thea
and
then?
Thea's in the
She's a
SS.
I'm
Scientologist.
the
Is she
Third
worse?
Reich.
No. The thing is, like, I'm Latino. Daniel is Jewish,
Daniel.
and Thea is. I had to use your
That's my sex name.
Oh, yikes! And Thea is a mix of Italian and Hungarian. So
Which is really nothing. It's just white.
yeah. So
Very white.
So we're talking from this sort of. I mean, I know the experience of a minorities sort of background, so I'm probably the closest to
Right.
this material.
He is definitely the most privileged amongst us.
Me?
Clearly.
Yeah, okay. But have you guys ever had any sort of like? I would think Thea has probably had the least of in the barrel of racism than us. But I'm sure as sexism and also dealings of sexuality, I'm sure Thea has dealt with it. Have you
Yeah.
guys ever dealt with like shit from other people just because of your background, your racial background, or your choice of life? and
I'm
stuff?
lucky
choice
because
of life, you know
I'm
what I
a
mean?
Jew in New York. So like, no. If I wasn't in New York though, like my family moved to Tennessee at one point, and they were telling me like weird shit that was getting said to them at work and stuff.
Really?
Like, yeah, just like the same exact type of stuff that happened in this movie. Like people just like asking these rude ass questions and like just saying things that you really should think twice about saying. Not like
That's so
outright
weird.
racist, but just saying
Right.
shit to them.
Just
you
like
know?
just ignorant, like they don't know.
Yeah, like ignorant,
Right.
stupid questions that like you just need to think about it for like 30 seconds and realize, oh yeah, I shouldn't probably say that. Like,
Also,
Yeah.
let me
That's
just
rude.
let me just walk back. I didn't mean to say choice of life. I meant we're all sort of dealt with what we were dealing with. I know that's gonna bother me, even though it doesn't bother Thea, but that's gonna bother me for sure that I said that.
Oh
But
yeah. Well, no.
it's
didn't
not a
notice you
choice,
said
right.
it, But don't worry about it.
Yeah, and like I've had racism towards me and by a lot of people, but
Yeah.
surprisingly in different ways. Just to name off a few, I remember I was at work once and I was talking to this coworker, this black kid, and I was saying, I knew they were talking about. I think there was a Biggie Smalls film. This was a long time ago, and I would say, yeah, Biggie Smalls used to sell crack, and then he got really offended because I guess he didn't know that Biggie Smalls used to sell drugs. So he called me.
Okay.
He called me a spic, and I was like, I got so fucking angry, and it's so funny because
Jesus.
I'm like, and I just walked out of the room and I started trashing shit. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm like, "Didn't you realize what you just said?" And it's so funny because I'm like, it's so stupid. And another guy, this one Daniel laugh at because it's offensive. But I used to get a comic. I used to buy comic books. Like I used to have like one of those things where you have your name on a list and they'll get the books for you and stuff.
barbarian.
And I went to the guy and he was like this white Italian guy, Thea. And he was like, "Oh, here you go." He said, "Here you go, Cheech." And at first I was like, huh?
Jesus Christ.
I was thinking about, I was like, because he was nice about it, but he also had said Cheech, and I was like, wait a minute, what the fuck?
But
Later.
why though?
I don't know. And the third time, I was at a house party, and we went to this room, and I guess these people were.
I'm gonna start calling you that from now on.
Oh.
I'll reach through the fucking computer like Tron and punch you in
No,
the
I
face.
like that. That's your new name.
But,
in my head.
I
won't
went
say
to-
it out loud, but it's in my head.
I went to a house party and there was these people smoking up in one of the rooms. So I walked in and they were like, "Oh, give him one." And I was like, "Ah, no." And there was a black kid smoking, and he was like this. He says, "Sorry, we don't hand it out to the Caucasians." So I was being racist too, and I wasn't white. I was like, what the fuck? And I was like,
damn, you can't catch a break either way.
I can't get
you
it.
can't win.
Oh my god. And so I told him I was black from the waist down. And then my fourth story is whenever I was in I lived in Long Island for a while in college, and everybody just called me Mexican, and they said horrible Mexican jokes. So there you go. Danny sure is a sensitive guy. But Thea, has anything ever happened to you that's sort of like, but you're like a different ball game, but it's equally as fucking offensive when it happens to you. So like, has anything been given shit to you? I don't know if you want to get too into it,
I
but
haven't had anything. I obviously never had anything racist because I am white, and I mean, I don't get a lot of shit for that necessarily. It's also like, I would say in Canada, it's also definitely a much quieter racism.
People are
like,
friendlier
if any,
there.
yeah. Well,
get out of my country,
it is sort of the tenor of this movie. It's a similar sort of way where people are like
polite racism or something.
Would be offended if you called them racist, but are definitely a little like everybody's a little bit racist.
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
Right.
Everybody has their own little bit of thing.
It's a bizarre thing to say, but like if you're like, I don't want to say like, oh, I'm a realist. But I remember one of the things this kid said at my job a long time. I was really at a racist job, I guess. But this kid said, no, I don't think anybody's ever going to get along because as long as we sort of all have different flags from different nations, we're just going to be having too many dogs in a fight to ever get along with anybody. And it's so weird because...
Fuck up.
What?
No, that's stupid. Everybody should get along because they're...
No, that's what I think that's the case. But I think his problem is that... everybody's so different that they're not going to get along because of that shit. That's the point. It's like people are like sort of have this this instilled.
You're supposed to learn from people's differences.
Yeah, it's this weird instilled notion
but I think
of
people
being,
are wired for conflict to an extent.
Yeah,
and so they're going to find something to fight about, whether it's
sort of like
whether it's
football and all that
whether
shit.
It's whatever.
Well, that's true for sure.
Like, there's a lot of people that like there's a lot of things if you hear about of like supremacist guys, like white supremacist guys, they literally think that there's a Jewish conspiracy to put black men and white women together to destroy the white race. And
the white Holocaust.
Danny, what have you been up to? What's going on?
Ugh.
I know it's.
I mean, what can I say? I really I hate the whites.
So that's the only thing with I think with Danny is that Danny can play both sides. So if there's a bunch of like angry white guys and they're against Jews, he can get mad at them. But then like if all of a sudden they're like treating white people nice, he'd be like, yeah, I'm a white guy, so it's okay. And it's it's just like it's a problem that's not going to be solved, I don't think, ever, unless everybody gets engineered like the Aliens
World War III
films.
is coming, so let's just hope we all die.
Yes, but anyway, there was sort of a tangent, but I think that we all come from a notion of who we are as people and how kind of incredibly fucking stupid it is to hate somebody just because of the way they look, the way they their races and stuff like who they love and all that stuff.
Or what
it's just
gender they choose or whatever.
It's so dumb, and I think that it's an interesting way that this film was playing out that without being so pandering. I think there was only one line that was sort of pandering in this film that was really like,
What was that?
To me it was the scene where the father was showing the Chris around, and then he's looking at all this.
One?
No, and he went around and he says a line where it's so incredible to be able to appreciate other people's cultures so freely. So, and that's obviously that whole shit where people say, "Oh, you're stealing my culture, you're appropriating my culture," which is a whole other sort of weird mess to get into with people saying, "Yo, you can't wear certain hairstyles
I wrote
and shit
down
like
stuff.
that."
He said it's such a privilege to be able to experience another person's culture.
There you go. So they fit in the word privilege and culture.
But it's kind of perfect because when you like watch it a second time, you're like that line has a whole other meaning to you.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly
yeah.
it's incredibly perfect for this film, but it felt like I was getting hit over the head with a shovel with that line.
But
I was like, oh, I get it.
Because I watched it again today, and I hadn't watched it since I'd seen it in theater, so all kinds of things were sticking out to me. Same here. And so when he walks into the kitchen when he's giving him the house tour, he says, my mother loved her kitchen, so we kept a piece of her in here. And then he introduces Georgina.
Ah, yeah, very good. And another thing I had noticed, too, is when after they hit the deer with the car, and the cop is stopping them, it was two things that worked out that I totally didn't get the first time. was that it was it was the first time I'd ever seen in a film this sort of, because I always hear white privilege, and I was like, well, what is
Right.
that? Like, I understand what it is. Like, you have
Right.
a certain way of life that you can get away with stuff, and it was like perfectly sort of articulated in the
There,
film
yeah.
for this. And
Yeah.
but I'm not one of those people that scream white privilege every 3 seconds. But then also for the fact that the daughter was essentially finding a way for his information not to be given to the cop,
Shared, yeah.
so they couldn't
Oh
find
yeah,
them.
that's true.
I had totally lost that in the first. I enjoyed the shit out of the film. This is the
There was that, and I also noticed that she and her parents are so adamant about him not smoking because they don't want
Because they want to hypnotize
his
him.
body. Yeah, they don't want
Right,
his body to
yeah,
be all fucked
that
up from
too.
smoking.
yeah,
Well,
that's
that,
good.
That I didn't even think about, but no, I was thinking they were using it as an excuse to hypnotize him.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought maybe
That
that
too.
was the reason why she chose him as well. There's a lot of like little things on second viewings and third viewings and fourth viewings that really work. And I think Daniel Kaluuya was fucking great as Chris Washington.
Is that the
Amazing.
is that the actor?
the main
Yeah,
guy,
that's
he's
Chris, yeah.
incredible. Because I was watching
Yeah.
it going like, this guy's a good fucking
the whole
lead.
cast
like,
was actually it was really
Yeah, the whole cast
I really
is
love
great.
Bradley Whitford and Catherine
Yeah.
Keener as the parents.
Yo, the fucking
Brother?
maid lady,
Oh, okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
she's really creepy.
She was in yeah, she was really good. I gotta talk about a line that she says in the film, but she was in I've only seen 2 of the Purge films, part 2 and 3. For some reason I have no interest in the first one. But they're fun, sort of like in a Death Wish sort of way. And she's in
Yeah.
the Purge part 3. She plays like this badass like killer good character who kills a lot of
Okay.
bad people. So it's worth watching.
I'd
You
be
can
into
watch
that.
Yeah, you can watch the second and third film without watching the first one. But
Good.
I want to jump into a line. What your interpretation? Well, obviously, anybody listening to this, you've seen this film. There's a scene where she's talking about the cell phone. You know how she had made it, which is another smart way for him to lose battery power in his cell phone. And
Right.
she knocked it over.
Keeps unplugging it.
And
yeah.
he says the line, "Oh, it's too many white people. I get nervous around too many white people." Why do you think she started crying in that scene? You think because she was sort of offended, like she got racism towards her?
No, I think it's because her actual self, because their actual selves are still in there to an extent,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
their
I see.
reactions and their inner workings.
What do they call it? The underworld or the?
What is it called?
The
The
sunken.
sunken place.
Well,
Yeah,
in
they're
any
in
the
case,
sunken
they're in there
place.
listening, like watching, like through a TV.
Right.
Yeah,
so
because
I think that thought, that idea, made her like sort of surface
Oh,
a
okay.
little bit, and then
sunken
it
place.
was the actual, like, the grandmother suppressing that.
Yeah,
part of her.
there's some ways to interpret that scene, because I thought maybe she just felt like, oh, there was racism towards her because she thought, oh, how could he think this about white people, and she's a liberal?
No.
Because the racism in this film is the liberal sort of racism, like we were saying
Right.
before. So it's weird because it's not like, hey, let's kill these black people. It's just like, hey, let's take over their bodies because we want to be superior or whatever. The
No,
sort of
because the grandmother knows they should be afraid of them.
right.
In this case.
So you don't know if
So
maybe she felt
it's a
bad
little
for him
different.
too. So it's also
Right.
like, but obviously not because she's playing along. But there's like this sort of romanticizing of another race. So you feel like,
Right.
oh, you know, that's what this movie is. Danny, did you remember where the brother
So if
Jerry?
anything, they should be flattered.
Oh, very good. Danny,
That's
did
the
you
takeaway.
Danny, did you recognize the brother Jeremy Armitage?
Oh yeah, he's from Antiviral.
Yeah, that guy,
He's such a creepy looking guy.
He's
There's no way to
so
miss him.
Creepy.
he is so
God.
Yeah,
he's
he
got
can't
this
help
in
but look freaky.
he is intense in this
Every
film.
word that comes out of his mouth was like just sinister.
Really?
Yeah,
he's
no, that guy, and in Antiviral too, he's like a sick fuck. Like that guy,
Ugh.
I wouldn't feel comfortable meeting him in real life.
No.
'Cause he's
Or
too-
anything like
No.
that.
He's two different types of crazy in either film, because I got to give him credit because he was really good in this one, like as in
Yeah.
a really intense sort of unhinged kind of guy. And in Antiviral, he's sort of unhinged, but in a more subtle way that you're like, oh, what the fuck
Yeah.
is wrong with this guy? But in this one,
Well,
he's
he's
like,
unhinged in the way of the whole society. Like, they're
especially
all
yeah,
unhinged.
especially
He
making
was
him.
almost too unhinged for me in this one. I was
Yeah, I
a little bit
think
like,
He's
okay.
a creepy fuck.
If I,
I
saw
think
that guy, I
they-
would run.
I think they explained it that he was an MMA fan, so you know that's that whole testosterone sort of Not saying all MMA fans are like that, but they certainly have something.
Yeah,
I
no,
know. I mean,
how dare you?
pretty
no, I mean,
judge
I know
all MMA fans.
I know a woman who's a kickboxer. Danny, you know her too, and you know she
I know
doesn't
her.
come off as an insane person like him. So I mean, I guess it takes all different types. But Allison Williams plays the girlfriend Rose Armitage, and she's really good in this. And if you've never seen Girls, which I haven't really, she's really good in this. But what's so funny is like. Do you guys know about Allison Williams? She's the daughter of that lion sack of shit, Brian Williams, the NBC reporter
right.
who said he fought war. Yeah, it was so funny. You know what's weird is that it makes me question my sexuality because I thought she was more attractive in the Peter Pan role because her hair was all short, and I was like, uh-oh. But she's very good in this. She's playing, legitimately thought she had no idea what was going on at the beginning of this film as a character. I thought maybe they hoodwinked her. But
yeah,
you're watching it more.
You wanted her to not be in on it.
Right, and I gotta say, like, I was so impressed in that scene when she's talking to his best friend Rod Williams over the phone, and she is completely stone-faced, but
articulating her voice.
Yeah, her voice is like it's so good, and like it was just so well
She's
done.
dressed like a fucking Star Trek villain.
And then I love when he puts the phone on hold and then is just like, you're lying.
Yeah, but that also brings us to Lil Ray Howery, who plays his best friend, who brings a really good amount of comedy into this film.
Yeah,
because essentially he is like, when you always see horror films and the black guy always is the one who says, let's get the fuck out of here. Like, I actually believe that because as a Spanish guy, I'd run the fuck out too. I'm always like, I gotta get out of here. And I think,
but I would have run out of a few of those scenes actually.
It's true, but there's something to be said that like when you are more in tune to that sort of discomfort, you're like, you trust your intuition more. I think
he's also the voice of reason in the film. I think, Rod Williams. But what's also funny, if you actually want to see like an actual interpretation or a real life incident of this, have you ever seen Jackass the film? There's a scene where there's an office, because they always say, oh, white people stay and black people run. There's a scene in Jackass 1 where they play a prank in an office and they crash through the ceiling. And all the white people are sitting there looking, and the one black guy runs out of the building, like for real. And there's a camera on him still running outside, and it has to be the fucking funniest thing I've ever seen because I was like, yeah, it's exactly what I would do too. He didn't even
accurate.
As soon as the ceiling fell, he just ran out the building, and it's got to be the greatest thing I've ever seen in a film. But also, there's
preservation is real.
That's true. There's also Catherine Keener as Missy Armitage, who plays the hypnotist mother. And she has this great thing where she uses
40-year-old virgin.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's what I remember from. She's great.
So
she's amazing.
And Bradley Whitford, both of them.
Yeah, both of them. And Bradley Whitford, my favorite role of his was actually the asshole in Billy Madison.
Yeah, that's all I knew him from.
Yeah, he's great in that movie. That's if you've seen any.
I liked him in Cabin in the Woods too, actually. More.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He's the one killed by the. What did he get killed by? A merman.
The merman.
Yeah.
No, wait. Is that his? I think his buddies. Wait.
No, it's him.
One of them.
No, it was him for sure. And somebody else got killed by a unicorn, I think. But they're both great as the parents. They come off really well, really inviting in the beginning of the film. So it's weird because this sort of film, you could see it as a half-an-hour episode of The Twilight Zone. But I think what Jordan Peele did really well was he put together a film that felt real and the characters felt real, because Daniel Kaluuya is fucking amazing as the main guy. Like,
he's incredible.
And I remember reading later on that Samuel L. Jackson gave shit to him
he's
because
not American.
Yeah, he's I think an American actor.
He doesn't understand what it's like to be black in America.
He's British. He's British, Danny.
It's a fucking movie.
I know, but
you have to understand. He's playing a role.
I know.
But he also, it's like, do you think like Britain is absent of racism? Like,
I know,
yeah, right.
Like they don't know what
They're the originators of that shit.
Also, a nice little a cameo by Stephen Root. Remember him from News Radio and also other films like Office Space and stuff like. He's a guy you've seen in everywhere. He's the blind guy in the film, Jim Hudson, the art dealer.
Yeah, I totally recognize.
Yeah, he's great. And the ones that made me laugh, obviously, were the black characters that were taken over by white people. So to explain it a little bit, how do they explain the brain thing? Because I kind of missed it the second time I watched it. Do they sort of?
There's different things they do, but they leave the main part of the brain, like the back part, which is like your consciousness. They leave that intact, but they take all the like memories and all that kind of stuff and the personality part and put it on.
Okay,
like,
so
the brain together.
So they're essentially sort of piloting this machine, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, like all the functions.
The controls
and the
are there.
So I
But
yeah.
subconscious.
So I wonder, is the surgery so still primitive that they act so weird, or is it just because they're like socially awkward older white people that are in these bodies? I couldn't tell.
Well, it might also be because they're trying to. They probably don't act like that normally when they're just with their family, and they're not trying to like put on airs and pretend to be like working for the family. I think that's part of it, and I think part of it is the presence of another black character bringing it out in the people who are trapped.
And they want to get out, and they want to warn him to get away.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because
which is why he reacts that way when he gets the flash photography, right?
And it should be horrifying, but I remember in the theater I was having this side of uncomfortable laughter throughout the film whenever the sort of the possessed black characters like Walter, Georgina, and Andrew. Andrew's the guy with the hat. To me, I laughed my ass off when, because I think it's Lakeith Stanfield, the guy who plays the guy with the older wife. Because for me, all those characters sounded like, you know, Dave Chappelle's sort of white guy voice.
A little bit.
Yeah, I was laughing my ass off in the theater just because I was like, this movie perfectly puts you into Chris's shoes. Because to me, Chris is probably the most realistic sort of character in a horror film I've seen in a long time. Like his reactions to stuff. Because it's not outright horror what's going on, but it's still questionable, like what's going
weird.
on.
No, it's fucking creepy.
Yeah, it's
if
a
I was
creepy
in that
film.
situation, I would have left after 10 minutes.
Because when he walks,
like, I'm sorry, guys.
when he walks
But
into
also,
Andrew,
to some extent, when you meet somebody's parents, like it's all, especially when it's like at a weird party.
I would have just been
awkward,
like, look,
right?
I would have been like, I have food poisoning. I would have called a cab.
But when he
I wouldn't
first
have even told them. I would have left, and I would have just been like,
When he-
I'm sorry, I have food poisoning.
when he first meets Andrew, and Andrew's having that bizarre sort of like cadence and stuff, and then after he leaves, he goes, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Yeah, that's
when
exactly
he
right."
when he went to like fist bump him, and he just grabs his
grabs
hand.
his hand.
I died.
This movie, and the thing is, this movie is so fucking funny because I was laughing in the theater, and I was like, I hadn't seen a film I laughed like
It was
even
so nice to see it in a theater and like laugh with a bunch of people.
Yeah, with a crowd of people. I went like I saw it, you know, in the city with like a pretty diverse crowd, and everyone was laughing at the right points because they, you know, they connected with this film. It wasn't like a preachy film, especially the part when because I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
So I know basically back and forwards the life of Jeffrey Dahmer. And that scene when his best friend Rod is talking about Jeffrey Dahmer eating people's brains and fucking their heads, I was nearly crying. Maybe a little bit too loud in the theater, uncomfortably. But that shit, this movie was fucking great. And I think like, I mean, obviously we're jumping back and forth from the type of film. Theo, what did you take from this film? Like, what did you sort of learn from this type of film?
I don't know. I mean, I think I enjoyed it because it was just entertaining all around. Like, like you said, like there's so much to laugh at.
It wasn't pandering.
Right. So
I didn't take it as pandering.
So it's sort of like it points out these things. It's like, it's like part of it's almost like a little bit like, dear liberals, when you act like this, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Please don't. But in a way that like you're also allowed to like laugh with it and like be scared with it at the same time, and it puts you in that position of like no power and being just uncomfortable and terrified so that you actually like sort of get a taste of it where it's not pandery.
Danny, what about you? What did you feel after you saw this film?
I just really enjoyed it, and it actually like genuinely creeped me out. There were points where I like paused it because I was like very nervous with that fucking maid lady.
Yeah,
like,
she's really good in this.
She was unsettling. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
like, before I
adjusting
knew
her
exactly what
reflection
was
in the
happening,
mirror.
I'm like, oh god, like when she's staring at him as he's smoking the cigarette outside right before he gets hypnotized.
But
there
she's
was, like, a
actually
scene,
looking at
the
her
guy's
reflection.
running at him. Oh my god.
That one scene alone
Yeah,
we
like-
spoke about earlier where she starts tearing up, like I thought that was so good and so fucking dark and creepy.
Well, and
I was like,
it's that
geez.
extreme close up too, where you, like unflinching look, like you can't look away. It's
Right.
so uncomfortable.
Even like because there's when she's about to say something and she catches herself, her lip quivers, and I was like, damn, that's good. You know, it's like, it's so good. What did you think that the finale was in keeping with the story? Did you think it's sort of like they had nowhere else to go with it, or what?
Well, it went to a you're next, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And
it
the thing
was
is-
It's okay, though.
I liked
And
it a lot.
anywhere it went, it sort of looks bad for Chris, regardless of what goes on. Because I mean, obviously, he kills this whole family inside there. Well, the grandfather
Yeah.
who gets returned
Well, hopefully
kills the daughter at the
TSA
end.
will be able to hide the evidence and the fingerprints.
Yeah, CSA
well,
does
once they
it.
go into the basement and find out what they were doing. Although I
Yeah,
guess
How
they
are
burned
you
hopefully.
gonna
the
find
ground.
out,
Never
though?
mind.
I mean, they're just gonna have a
well, they
they're
burned it
just
to the
gonna have a
ground, too.
video. They're not gonna know.
And you got to think that that company is big enough to kind of cover that up, because it's like,
Yeah.
as soon as I watch that, they have one of those cool things in these type of horror films where it's sort of like Hostel, you know, where there's this sort of nefarious sort of corporation that runs shit.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I got that
in
feeling
this one,
watching
it
this,
was
and
the
I was
order,
like,
but they don't name what it actually is.
Like
they say
martyrs and all that.
they say a word, I think coagula, which is like, I guess, the stiffening
Yeah.
of blood. Which, so it's obviously something bigger that's not seen. Hopefully they don't make a sequel to this, because they, for some reason, those type of films, they always kill the lead in the next film, and that's what, if anything, that's the worst thing for me with Hostel 2 is when they killed the main guy from Hostel 1, and I was so upset. I was like, I can't enjoy this film. But I think they went the logical way, and obviously the ending was, everybody in the theater was like, oh fuck! Oh, once they saw the police lights come up, because he, you know, the Rose gets killed by the guy who kills himself, the grandfather, who is now taken back over by the original guy,
Right,
and
she
they
gets
see
shot.
they see the cop lights, and you're like, oh shit, this is gonna be some sort of, you know, cop
Like,
shooting
he's
an
gonna get
innocent guy
framed.
again. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently that was the alternate ending. I haven't seen the alternate ending anywhere, but I assume that's
He
what it
probably-
was.
I don't
gets
know if
killed
I
by
ever
the
want to
cops,
watch
right?
that version.
Yeah, I mean, either it'll probably bum me out, because Jordan
Yeah.
Peele says, he says we wanted to have a black character that actually survived it and made it through
Yeah.
this, because like the only other black character I remember watching a horror film and going, wow, they actually let the black guy live. Like I could, like
Yeah.
it wasn't something that I was like conscious about, but like the House on Haunted Hill, when I first saw that film.
Right,
And the black guy
right.
actually survived. I was like, "Holy shit! They actually let the guy live." Like I was like, "Good." I was like, "Good." You know, I'd never seen that in a horror film, honestly, because they're always like the first guys that get killed.
Honestly.
And
I would love to see a horror movie where somebody has sex and hooks up and doesn't get killed.
I'm sure there's
all
movies.
doing
Well, we saw there was Sleepaway Camp 3 that happened. So there you go. They got remember.
No, everybody dies in that. What are you talking
No,
about?
remember the girl in Sleepaway Camp 3. That girl was cheating on her boyfriend with the other main guy, and they got away with it.
Don't they die?
Dead
I'm
air.
getting confused right now.
Yeah, good job, Danny. One of your favorite movies. But no, I really.
She does die. She does die. They get
No,
sticks.
You go listen to the episode again. Anyway,
I don't listen to the episode. I've seen the movie.
the main girl survives at the end. Okay, go watch Sleepaway Camp 3 because Danny's favorite, because they hit a guy over the head with a stick. Anyway, so with this
Alright.
film, I think were there any negative aspects of the films you guys didn't like?
No.
I
Yeah,
don't think
that
I
was
have
good.
anything.
It's a pretty.
Honestly, I thought you know the way how like the how the dad is like, I would have voted for Obama 3 times, and like,
Yeah.
that kind of pandering shit, which the movie touches on. I actually
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
was worried. Oh, I hope people aren't saying it's good just so they don't seem racist or something. You know,
No.
like I really thought maybe, but then I was like very pleasantly surprised that it's,
This
like,
is that's the one
really
time
good.
where this is the one time where you can genuinely say it's a well-rounded horror film, and it's
Yeah.
done so. And it's so funny because I would go on these boards where there's obviously racist fucks, but even the right wingers would like this. The racist right wingers like this because it paints the fucked up liberals in a weird way. And
Yeah.
trust me, I don't like liberals or right wing people. Left or right wing
Liberal
extremes, I don't like.
racism is just
I
as
hate
bad.
everyone equally.
Yeah, same here. But not on the color of their skin. But I liked it a lot. And do you guys have any final words for the film? Like, I guess we pretty much said it all. I think. What's your rating, Thea?
My rating is, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. A 10 out of 10. Go for a fist bump. Get a weird hand hold thing around your fist and walk away awkwardly.
I'll give it a 10 out of 10. Being an old white guy getting put into a young African American man's body, but you still got to bang an old hag. Danny?
Yeah, he could have upgraded.
He could get like
yeah.
some Instagram
What do
models
you
or
think?
something, you know? Jeez. Go
Maybe
ahead.
he
I'm
will
gonna give it a 10
Apologies
out
to
of
that
10
actress.
also.
Okay.
So full 10 out of
A fucking
10 out of
perfect
10,
score.
10 out of 10. Oh, I just had my scene. What was it?
so funny because I
God.
bet you any racist people that listen to this podcast, they'll be like, "Oh, they're fucking pandering." You know, it's so funny. If
Well, no, but that's what I thought the whole movie was.
I know,
because
no, they're saying
before hearing it, 'cause
you
just
and I
knew
and
people
Thea
were
are
doing it.
pandering. By the way,
No, but it's legitimately a fucking awesome movie. 10
By the
out of
way-
10,
Well, what I think, yeah.
fucking this girl that you love so much and not knowing that she's actually like
All
a
class.
Star Trek villain.
A Star Trek villain.
anyway, go ahead,
She
Thea.
looks like in the white with her hair all combed and shit.
Go ahead, Thea. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, I think this movie proves that like it starts from good writing, because I think if this movie didn't have such an amazing script, it just wouldn't have been the same. And directed well too, obviously.
And great
He
acting.
had a vision for it, and it was
Yeah, and he knew what he was doing. And it's so funny because a lot of directors get their start in horror films because horror films make money regardless of what they are. You know, I mean,
right.
regardless of who makes
and they
it.
have a lot of like standard sort of go-tos as well.
Yeah,
I wish they expanded it a little bit, like maybe a little more of the explanation and the hypnosis process a little bit.
I
you
would
know.
like to see those white brains in black bodies go out into the world as black people, and then also have to live that.
because that's like a
dawning
comedy
horror.
film. Yeah, because then they themselves would experience the
Be like,
racism
oh,
too.
shit.
That's like Twilight
What did I
Zone,
sign
where
up
the guy
for?
Becomes the
Yeah.
Nazi becomes a Jew.
But yeah, I think it's great. I think that's like a perfect score from us for the first time. I think. So with that, Thea, what's the final word?
I change it to a 7.
Thea, what's the
Armitage.
final word? Racist. Danny, what's the final word?
Yeah.
The Horror Deconstruction.